Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone. I know there's still going to be people joining as we get started today. So I'm Mary Spalding, and I'm the president of the Council of the Rudolph Steiner branch in Chicago. And just want to say that this is the first time I've ever hosted one of these Zoom events. Our program coordinator, Andre Onegan, and Jonathan Hadley, who's also on our council, the two of them have been hosting. And so I hope I do everything right. And if there's any problems, just, let me know and be patient with me. But so I'm very excited today. We're going to have a member of the Vorstand of the Goetheanum and the head of the agricultural section. Ueli Hurter is our speaker today, and I hope that I said your name right. And so anyway, welcome. And so what I'm going to ask you all to do, it looks like you are all muted, so thank you very much. And he is going to be presenting for a while, and then at a certain point, he will be having an opportunity for you to ask questions. So at that point, we'll work through unmuting and asking the questions, and then you're welcome to put things into chat if you have any questions for me. And other than that, I think we are ready to get started. So thank you all so very much for attending today, and welcome.
Thank you. So hello and good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I am in Switzerland and it's evening for me and it's bad weather. So I had to put the light on. And in some way I speak from the Goetheanum. Just actually I'm in my home office. And yeah. The title of my contribution is From Land Stewardship to Climate Stewardship. Means that in some way from being land or earth farmers, we have to become then climate or atmosphere farmers. And this way to say is some way raised, is an outcome of our agricultural conference we have had in February at the Goetheanum, completely a digital event and together with the youth section. And so it's not, let's say, an agronomical approach I will do. It's not, let's say, a technical approach as we know about climate from politics and so on. It's more really from an anthroposophical point of view that climate crisis, let's say like this, is calling us. And I would say in three dimensions. In an ecological dimension, but also in a social dimension. There is also a social climate, and there is also a crisis in social climate. And also, let's say, in a cultural or spiritual dimension, because each time also has his cultural or spiritual climate, and I would say we are there in a crisis too. And in our conference, we related the three dimensions of climate, and I will try to bring this a little bit now to our space we share together. And of course, the main view is an agricultural one, because this is my profession and my field. But I would like to speak in a sense that we all are farmers, are agricultural people, because we all live on earth and we all eat. And also clothing and housing I mean, the main basic needs we have, because we are in an earthly body, they are covered by the gifts of the earth. And the farmers, they just are delegated from the society to do what in former times all people have done. But no one can say that farming is not something which is very near to him. Even perhaps he is in office all his day. But I would like to speak to all of us. There is professional farmers, but there are farmers, let's say, in a way that it's a basic condition of our human earthly life. And perhaps we are more on the eating side than on the production side. But I think that the earth as a living being is a kind of concern and of goal for all of us. And the farmers just are in a specific position because they do it all the day round. I will share a PowerPoint. It helps perhaps a little bit because English is a challenge for me. And when then we went through, I would like also to open up for questions and to have an exchange. But perhaps I go through and we make it at the end. Okay, I hope we are clear what we have in ahead of us. And now I try to bring my screen in. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so here we are. And just that we link a little bit more between Chicago and the US. I have been 3 or 4 times in your country, on the east side, in California, in Wisconsin, and that you have an idea, where is my place? I show you here just L'Aubier. It's in the French part of Switzerland, and you have the farm building, and you have it from another perspective. And we also run different other activities as a hotel and so on. So this is a place completely based on anthroposophy, where I worked for 30 years. I have been in the leading team. And as I have appointed now to the executive board at the Goetheanum, I'm less and less here and more at the Goetheanum. And this is the other place I'm active. Most of you perhaps have already seen the Goetheanum as a building and the big hall from the inside, and activities as eurythmy or research and so on. And even at the Goetheanum, we have some cows. So you see, agriculture is everywhere. Now, when we speak about the earth and the atmosphere, sorry, and we learn from Rudolf Steiner that it is not as we learn in the universities, because he makes the 4 steps of becoming Earth. And you see the red circle. So this is old Saturn, and he writes underneath the circle man. So means that far, far back in the first, let's say, stage of realization of what is actual Earth, man is already present. And in the second one, which is the clear yellow one, you see that it's written Sonne, means sun, and underneath it's written man and animal. You see, it's the other way around. First is man, and second also comes into appearance in a kind of very early incarnation of the earth, also the animals. And then we go to the third stage, which is moon. And there we have man, animal, and plants. And the fourth one for me is behind the pictures. Is it the same for you?
No, we can see it.
Okay, wonderful. So the fourth one is then Earth. And it's the blue one. It's our blue planet. And man, animals, plant, and minerals. So what we can learn from Steiner's cosmology is that the spiritual reality of becoming Earth goes in the opposite way than the one which we find with our science of evolution, where we came to the result that minerals are first, and then plants, and then animals, and at the end, man. I think the both of the findings can be right, but they look from a different perspective. And what I would like to show with this reference to Steiner is when we have now to make the step from land stewardship to climate stewardship, that we have to change our view, our look, our perspective. Because, I mean, climate stewardship doesn't really make sense in the first approach. You don't have a piece of climate you can work on as you can have a work of land, a piece of land, a piece of earth. So we have to approach, but what I would like to show with this is that we have to change the direction of how we see the things. And this we can learn by Steiner. I tried to bring it in this way. This is a blackboard drawing from Steiner. And this is a second one. And here is again Earth, and we can see in some way the atmosphere around the Earth. And we can see that in some way the Earth is radiating. And this is again a kind of finding which natural science don't find. But for Steiner, it's clear. The Earth, in his future quality, but which is in a very first step already actually reality, is a kind of sun Earth and is radiating with new life forces out into the cosmos. So it's not only a planet, which is some way dependent on a sun, but as the sun being Christ came down to earth, took an earthly body and re-erected, we have these forces of resurrection in the earthly reality, in the atmosphere, and we are called, we are asked by Steiner to try to find, to discover them, and even to work with them all over. So a second picture drawing from Steiner, which is a call to us to say, we have to shift our way to see things. And I mean this always in order to be capable to deal with the challenges of our time. I'm not speaking for a far, far away future. I'm speaking for now towards our challenges we have, especially actually in this contribution with the climate issue. And then I have a third blackboard drawing from Steiner, and this is from the agricultural course. This has been in June 1924. So he went on a farm and with about 150 people, most of them farmers, he made his cars for the professionals. And for us, for the biodynamic movement, this is the very source of our work. And this is from the second lecture. And I will not go into the details now of what we see, but again, what I would like to show here that we have the very big pictures and imaginations from Steiner, but then also here with the agricultural cars, the gesture to bring it down to earth. And when you are a farmer and you have some hectares or acres to your disposal, to really work hands-on, grounded and practically and productively, and also economically sustainable with these images. They are not for to dream with, they are for to work with. And one can say perhaps that it's one special view that the biodynamic farming impulse, or what we call like this, which is an anthroposophical impulse on the field of agriculture, in some way hands-on, we deal with these forces I named before, which came from the far, far past, but we have also received a very strong impulse with the year zero. And in some way, perhaps we will see later on that with the biodynamic preparations, we are working with these new forces. And we understood until now for the earth. And my question is, could we also understand this for the work for the atmosphere? It means for the climate. So this was a kind of reference by Steiner. And now a complete change. This is another way to draw things. And I bring quickly, more or less, not the same, but a similar perspective now, how it shows in our time. And these are the planetary boundaries, a very known slide. And what is here tried is to show with the green circle in the middle, this is the healthy earth. And then you have the different ecological issues we are dealing with. And when the red surface goes above, overshoots the green circle, it means that we are not in a sustainable way living on our earth. And you see that by far, where we are harming the most our earth is with the biodiversity loss. We are actually dealing in our, let's say, societal actual life more with climate, but we know that the biodiversity issue will come and will be even harder, more challenging. But we see also climate is red, much more than possible, and others also. And now, so this is the ecological dimension of, let's say, our climate crisis, and we see it's not only climate. And now it's a second dimension which is introduced here. You have still in the circle around these red surfaces where we overshoot the possibilities of our planet. And we have towards the center also red surfaces, and these are the shortfalls in our social issues we have. And you find they're different, you can read it. And it means that when we say now, okay, we have ecological challenges, let's address them, then we became aware that our social conditions and our social capabilities are in a deficit, are in a shortfall, and sometimes we can't go to encounter the ecological issues because we are hidden by our social shortfalls or deficits. There are examples in each country. I think you know it too. You have had a political situation for 4 years which was not able to deal with this kind of ecological issues, and in other countries it's in another way, but that both has to do with the other one. And I go to a third picture in this little series, and now here it's done by Volkert Engelsman, a friend from the Netherlands, and he put in here a Celtic cross, means symbol, figures the spiritual or cultural dimension of what we have to deal with. And it means that in addition to the ecological, in addition to the social dimension, we have this spiritual dimension. How can we individually be human in our time in order really that each one is capable to bring out of his development, his contribution to the overall situation? Are we only driven by challenges and by pressures from outside, or are we capable to, with education and with new ways to live our humanity, the real source, this we learn by Steiner, of what could be, let's say, in our time, where the gods are silent, where we are not taken by hand by the gods as in former times, where it's up to us as humanity and as individual humans to lead our striving and the striving of our society, of our civilization, and of the earth. We have all to be leaders, and this symbol will mean, are we capable as a world civilization to develop ourselves in this way as leaders in order that each one can contribute to our overall tasks. And I bring here a verse from Steiner, perhaps to make a kind of closing of this first part of presentation. I will read it. With great suffering, our Mother Earth has become solidified. It is our mission to spiritualize it once again, as through the strength of our hands, we reshape it into a spirit-filled work of art. So what we have seen in the three pictures, that Earth has not been solid and then, no, it has been solidified, and this has been a suffering for Earth as a being, for Mother Earth as a living being. And now we have the mission to bring these new forces into action, and through our hands, and to work not for an old nature, but for a new one, which here is named a work of art. Let's be artists. With great suffering, our Mother Earth has become solidified. It is our mission to spiritualize it once again, as through the strength of our hands, we reshape it into a spirit-filled work of art. And now I would like to take you on a little journey towards a little bit closer what we call biodynamic agriculture. And I once shaped it in a kind of 7 principles, which I would like now to show. And then we will have to look how now these principles we could, let's say, turn them around in a way that from stewards of land we became also stewards of climate, stewards of what is not the solid center of something, but the atmosphere around all where we are actually, in our social relations, in our way to understand nature, in our way to act in a group, in our way to do our inner work. We have to make a kind of step from this centered I consciousness to a kind of periphery consciousness. And this is very difficult because we have an I consciousness, because we are centered, because we have a body, because it is a reality that our thinking remains, I mean, is based on our brain in some way. And when we try to be atmospheric in our feelings, in our thinking, in our willing, normally we sleep away. We are not active. We are not, the I is not in, is out. So how can we become, let's say, I beings, but not ego beings, but I beings who are in some way conscious and feelings and with the will also in the periphery. I think this is the call we receive from the atmosphere, from what we call the climate crisis. The call is the earth and our overall situation is more and more to be shaped, to be worked on, to be understood out of the atmosphere and not from one center, not from the ego, but let's say from a wider sphere. So here are the 7 principles, and they are not from Steiner. Huh? It's me which structured it like this, and you can do it in another way. So this is not a kind of something official. And we will go through them. But here you have the overall picture. And you see perhaps on the left that these 7 principles, they came from a more general situation to a point. And this I will show. And then normally we don't go further on. But in my view, we have 3 principles which go further on. So the first one, soil, the respiratory organ of the living earth. Soil is really what we strive for in biodynamics. We are the movement, I would say, who are the most linked, I mean, out of our 100 years experience to the earth. And we really have the picture from Rudolf Steiner that it is a breathing organ, and soil is not just a surface, it's breathing. And what breathes is that the situation, or let's say the atmosphere, or let's say what is underneath the earth, I mean the surface, the soil, and what is above the two they encounter. The interpenetration of heaven and earth, and this in a breathing way, this is the principle we are striving for. And then we have the plant. And the plant is drawing, each plant is drawing a vertical line in this relation from earth and cosmos, here represented by the sun. And it means that with the roots, imagine the globe of the earth. All roots around the world, they point to the center of the earth. And all stems of plants, they radiate and go in some way to encounter the sun. But what is important here, that the plant is the being who relates by its life heaven and sun, heaven and earth. And it's really the way that the plant is living in the two spheres and is creating by its life a living, a substantial connection between what is separated with the surface of the soil. It's a miracle, and it's wonderful each time one becomes aware of this. So you see, we are on the second of the principles, and now we go to the third one, and you see it's not complicated, it's very basic. And we came to the animals, and as I'm Swiss, I draw a cow, and this cow has horns because it's a biodynamic cow. And the cow, they are the big eaters, let's say. They are digesters, and then we have the milk, of course, or the meat, but then we have the dung. We have what comes out, and we can make compost, and this goes again to our surface in order to make growing in a healthy way our plants. And you see that the line, the gray line, it makes some loops. And also now my overall situation, I have a circle around. It means it's with the animals and with their capability to take what is outside in and to make of this inner life something for the whole situation with the manure, mainly with the cow, but with other gifts from other animals, so that we create now, and the circle is a symbol for the agricultural organism. My farm becomes now an organism. It's not just a piece of land, it's not just with crops on, is now an organism, means a living being in itself. And this is one of the very strivings we have in biodynamics to build up this living organism, and it's a huge work. In order that this place is closed, sustainable, and can live out of his own forces, and not only to sustain for itself, but to be productive, that I can sell my products to all the others who are around and not farmers. This is in some way, one can say, the business model of a biodynamic farm. Not to have input, output, but to have a closed circle which is productive. And it needs time, years and years. And it's a hard job, and normally you need a community that you can achieve it. And now I came, you see here, to the force, to the point. But what is then where things really came together? And I figure it like this. It's the same circle in the middle, not so nicely drawn. And now we do the biodynamic preparations. And we have 2 with the horns, and we have 6 for the compost. And they are figured here with these red symbols. And by doing the preparations, what has been the closed circle now opens up again to the cosmos and to the earth. And what is, for the normal way to understand a closed thing, is close to be even more open than it has been by nature. What we strive for, and this is the dynamic part of biodynamic, the bio part is the closed circle, and the dynamic part is that we relink to the cosmos and to the deepness of the earth in a new way, in order to bring these forces into the life of the farm and into the products, what we call then the Demeter quality. And the one of the horn preparations is the horn manure. And you see some picture, I think you have already heard about. And we elaborate it, and then we stir it, and we bring it out, and it really opens up our surfaces to the deepness of the earth. And as we have considered ourselves until now more as soil farmers than as climate farmers, for us this has been the most important of the preparations. But we have the other one, the horn silica preparation, where we make a kind of powder out of a silly from a crystal, and we fulfill a horn, and then we dig it in summertime. I will not go into details. We stir it again, and we bring it out when we have already the green of the plants. And it helps the plants to really relate with, let's say, the cosmos, means with light and warmth, and to incorporate this. And then we have the 6 compost preparations, the yarrow preparation, chamomile, stinging nettle, oak bark, dandelion, and valerian. Each one with a specific way to be prepared, with an organ of an animal and with a kind of exposition to either winter or summer earth or to the whole year. So we have a kind of let's say, yeah, the preparations which are in the way I tried to explain or to show that what could be seen as something closed is only closed in order to communicate even more and even wider and even deeper and in a substantial way with what is around in the earthly surrounding, but also in the cosmic surrounding. I guess you have already, the most of you heard of this. It's an open source technology. Each one can do it. We learn it or we give courses to it. So it's not a secret. It's not a copy trademark on it. It's really a gift from Rudolf Steiner to the biodynamic movement, that the biodynamic movement is open. Now, this has been the point. And now we go further on. And if you see here on the left side, I'm on the 5th of these principles. And it shows that out of such a farm individuality, we can work into the wider surrounding in order to be landscapers. Often when you go to a biodynamic farm, you feel that the atmosphere, that what is around as nature is already influenced by it. And with this, I would say, we also, with biodynamic places, which are power places, we work in the surroundings in order to bring, let's say, some of these health forces to the wider surrounding, to the wild animals, to the forests, to the water, and to, let's say, a healthy and aesthetical landscape. And the 6th of the principles, food for human beings. Farming means be producer and means having products at the end to sell. And wherever you are in the cities, there is food coming to you from the farms, and the red streams means what goes back. It's money and the unsent, and it's a kind perhaps also of estimation. And when you have, for example, CSA model, you link this social surrounding and to the farm very, very close. So we have this, and the 7th one is here often, I would say, based on this way to work with nature in a biodynamic way. We have a kind of forces which also then create a kind of structure in the social surrounding. And I illustrated it here with the threefold social order, with economical life, political life, and cultural life. And I put in French the 3 words of the French Revolution: fraternité, égalité, liberté. Because we know that we are so complex beings actually, that when we try to build up, to shape, and to construct social structure where we as individuals, as modern individuals, we can behave in a right way, it's not only one of these dimensions. We need 3 different dimensions where we live in the 3 of them, but they have to be organized in a kind of different way in the cultural life, in the political life, and in the economical life. So I have a quarter of hour left because we started at 8:05, but I have to speed up a little bit. And in some way, one can say the human being as the foundation, because this is a quote of Rudolf Steiner's agricultural course, that what we bring to this work to be cultivators of the earth, the model to do so is the human being. And this is an ideal way to see, but life is not always ideal because things like this happen. We all know Greta Thunberg, and it's a very special phenomena, but in some way she was not, let's say, fine, and she started with her Friday strikes. This became a movement. The Friday for Future movement, the youth, and we see here, let's say, playing and caring about the earth. And we did our event in February in Dornach together with the youth section out of this situation, agricultural, the rooted people together with the youth, which are not rooted at all. We could say as farmers, they don't know what life is, but they are in the streets and they say, stop, we have to change. And you see here in the cities with our way to build our cities. And yeah, there is tension. It's not ideal. The young people, the future generation, they say, at least with the climate, something is wrong. And they go even further on and say we need not a kind of change in the climate issue, but also in the overall way to be a society, to live on Earth. And I took this picture because it's written there, climate justice. And here we see that this climate movement has a danger. It has the danger to be at the end, how to say, yeah, not to bring what they would like to bring in a way that it can be socially breathing. No, they claim a kind of absolute way to go. And I would say this is a danger, that they say there is no time that we can do it together. We have to take actions in a way which is, I would say, not democratic. So we see all of a sudden it becomes also dangerous when one takes one perspective as the only one. And I would say COVID situation brought this very strongly also to our experience. Yeah, it's a so overall situation that it should be worked on from a multi-perspective way, and not only from specialists about virus. And the climate issue the same. if only the calculators of the CO2 balances became, let's say, the experts of all we do in our society, this will be not good. This will be, I would say, socially not possible. But we are a little bit on this way. And therefore also we, as the agricultural section and with the youth section, we took both streams together in order to encounter and to look how the one who are rooted and who have their land and the one who are not rooted and who are even not, you know, these people here, these 15, 60-year-old young people, they are not sure if they can put their feet on the earth because the earth will not be able to support it. Yeah. The footprint, we have this expression, yeah, that the footprint is a danger for the earth, but we are actually in a situation that the young people, they are not sure if they can come with their feet, with their footprint on the earth, in order, because they think they destroy the earth by coming down. And my, let's say, impulse is to try to say to them that the earth is waiting on your footprint because you, as a human being, you bring something which never has been here and which is needed. But we see, yeah, this has been our conference at the Goetheanum. For the one who know, this is the big hall. No public because we are in COVID, and we streamed it. Look, what a crazy situation. But it worked wonderful. We have had 1,300 participants from 62 countries. Many, many people who never could have come to the Goetheanum because they are living in poor situations in the Philippines, in Namibia, in Colombia. They have been with us and they have been very thankful that we did in this way. But you see, it's a challenge, yeah? Is this Goetheanum-like to have this kind of technique and to stream things? But we took the challenge, and I would say it worked. It has been a cultural, a spiritual, dense situation and real encounters with the people. So I dropped out. This was not that. What happened? That's it. I will not go further, I will go back. So I go the way back because we have seen here that it's a kind of socially, we have to be careful. Spiritually, we have to be careful. Ecologically, we have to be careful towards each human being. We have to be careful, and perhaps the old ideals will not help so much. And we have seen now, here we have challenges and not only nice structures. And here I say what I have said by opening the contribution. even you are not farmer, you are consumer, but consumer mean to have in the plate each day what has been worked out by the farmers, by farming, by being stewards of the land. And now they have to become stewards. We all have to become stewards of climate. So you have the power wherever you are by buying food to give your voice, to give your contribution, to be partners for the land, for the planet in this way. And the preparations which we have seen until now as biodynamic movement for, let's say, the healthy earth, I would say we have more and more to try to discover them also in order to help the atmosphere, the climate. And this horn silica preparation became perhaps the most important one because perhaps it's a kind of climate preparation. Until now, this one, the horn manure one, has been for us more understandable and more nearer to our heart, perhaps one can say, because we are so much caring for the soil that doing something like this for the soil has been very near for the heart to us too. But now, with the climate situation and with the call to become a steward of the climate too, that this horn silica preparation, which we spray really in the situation where the plants and the light and the warmth, they create in some way the new life. And climate is under stress. And my hope, my perspective is that we discover in a new way, in a more multi-perspective way, this horn silica preparation in order also to help to bring from each place where we apply it a kind of help to the atmosphere, not only to the crops we are growing. And because of time, I will not so much speak about the cow, but speak about a little bit about the plant. Because, as I said in the starting, we have to turn our way to understand and to look to things. And look here, normally we all see that the plants, they grow from upside, that they grow from down to above. But this is, let's say, the old picture. This is the picture when we are stewards of the land. But now, when we have to become stewards of the climate, of the atmosphere, we have to turn. We have to look from the other side, and then we can say, but the plants, they grow from above down to earth. This is the reality. And it's even the reality in a very concrete way. I mean, it's in the leaves with the sunlight and warmth where the new substances out of the atmosphere are created, the sugars, and then they are condensed, and then they are going down in a stream of which is of these very new substances and goes down into the root and penetrates out of the roots and enlives the soil. And then the soil is bringing up his other substances which are more salty qualities out to bring it to the upper life. So we have to turn our look and to try to see that the plants, the trees, they are growing out from above, from the atmosphere to the earth. I can't say what this will have as consequences, but in this way, in a concrete way, we have to shape and we have to discover a new look, and also with the way we see this breathing earth. It's breathing from the soil up, but also from the atmosphere down. And in this way, I would like to end again with this verse from Rudolf Steiner, which we have already had. With great suffering, our Mother Earth has become solidified. It is our mission to spiritualize it once again. Through the strength of our hands, we reshape it into a spirit-filled work of art. Here we are. This has been my contribution, and if you might, now we can have a kind of sharing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. That was so fascinating and so humbling. It's always so humbling to hear about biodynamic agriculture and to know that the work of the biodynamic farmer is working with the whole entire earth and the climate and the atmosphere. So if anyone would like to ask a question, I would like you to put your hand up. Is that how you can do that? And then I can call on you one at a time, and you can unmute yourself before you ask your question. So if anyone would like to go first, I'm going to try and take a look at who is interested in. You can also put something into the chat, and I am happy to read that. So we have Mihai, okay, wants to ask a question. So Mihai, can you please unmute and you can ask?
Sure. I have kind of like, in my mind, 3 small questions that combine into one. And if you can't answer them all, that's okay. So the first thing that came to my mind is, have these kind of preparations been done in the past by human beings in one way or another? And then if so, have we forgotten how to do it? Going into the future, why is it necessary to do these preparations? Is it because it's making up for something that is missing? And so my last kind of question is, should we be helping doing preparations in places of the earth where it is not cultivated? Are we interfering in a harmful way, or is this something that is necessary, not just in places where is a farmland? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I mean, agriculture is an old field, but these kind of preparations, they are really new inventions. Rudolf Steiner, together with his co-workers, in former times, for example, in India, in the Ayurvedic agriculture, they have also had kinds of substances, but more than linked with religious events and so on. So I would say it's not completely new for humanity to have kind of homeopathic substances to work with in agriculture. But in this way, they are purely new by Steiner. And I would say they make sense to apply when you build it up, this farm organism. When you spray them out in places just where there is no cultivation, as you asked, I can't see that this is very meaningful. But yeah, I'm a farmer, I'm looking on this way. It's not, they are not something which is consistent in itself. They need a kind of envelope in they can work, and this is what we call a garden, a farm, a park, and so on. And it means also, you know, people who are in charge of this years after year. Yeah, it's a kind of gesture from us humans to bring to the earth. It's not a technique which is to think without, let's say, this kind of yeah, of what we do when we bear something. Did I got the question?
Thank you very much. Yes.
Janine, do you want to read your comment or re-ask your question?
Sure, I'll just share that while you're speaking, and again, your presentation was incredibly profound and very touching and humbling. I do think that, you know, our society constantly uses these words like being a consumer or being a user, you know, being a taker basically. And that is part of our, you know, our unconsciousness as a group, or our, you know, our social fabric of how everything is conducted. We're users of technology. We're called users and we're called consumers. How do we break that relationship and change our language so that we are more, you know, participants? Even though perhaps I'm not a farmer, but I'm still, if I'm, you know, going to eat something from your farm or from, like, you know, a friend of mine who has a CSA, if I'm eating from Natasha's farm, I'm still part of her circle of life. And she is feeding me. We are participants in this. She's growing something that I am taking into my life that is, you know, part of the things that I do in this world and give back to the world. You know, there's like you have this relationship of the cow and how the cow is a living organism of the land. How are we, you know, as part of that as well as an organism where we're more participating because we're taking that in as well. And it goes into the things that we do and our health and our vitality. You know, how do we change our thinking and cultivate some of those ideas? I think that would be very healing. And last night, Cynthia Hoven did a presentation at the Colorado Group's Front Range Cafe, and she talked about how our speech, the words that we use, are, you know, changing the air that we breathe. So if our speech is toxic, that contributes to the toxicity of all of our environment. You know, it's not just pollution from chemicals or from gas or this or that. It's our very speech, our own thinking, our own ideas, our emotions, what we're putting into the air, what we're forming in the air also plays a role. And it also plays a role, you know, in with the biodynamic work that's being done too. Okay, perhaps I've said too many things, but I'm just putting them out there for people to think about. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you very much. I agree completely. This, let's say, division into producers and consumers is from the past. We should overcome it. And practically what you have with the CSA movement is a practical way to become partners. Also in the way you handle the money then between the both, yeah. And I think with the food movement you have in the US, there will be many new forms which has to be tried out, which has to be prototyped, and in this way that the one are producers for the stock exchange and the others are some way consumers in super mega stores. This should be the past, and we should more and more create what we call actually food systems, that we are all in one region in a kind of food system or food systems. It means, again, not to think and to speak and to structure out of a point where each one is on another point, but out of an atmosphere where we are together in. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Janine, for the question. And Dr. Yurchenko, would you like to ask your question that you put in the chat box? Or I can ask it for you.
Yes.
Just unmute. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very informative and very stimulating. I've got lots of questions, but you don't have much time, unfortunately. So I will put just a few of them. First question is about the soya. Do biodynamic farmers inform people about the danger soya brings to the soil, like the rise of infection for 2.5 years, and then also the harm to the health of the human being known from the medical side, because it undermines the glands, most of the glands of our body, and also brings too much acidity, and also there are some carbohydrates which we don't have ferments to digest it. So it is, I would say, very dangerous plant in the world, but I noticed that some farmers from the biodynamic farmers, they use soya in their fields.
Yes, I mean, the soya is a very specific plant. It's a leguminose, and in this way it can fix the nitrogen in the soil. So this is something which we are looking for. And on the other hand, as you say, it's so specific plant that for the nutrition side of the question, one can have big questions to this plant, yeah. But it's not our task to, let's say, bring awareness to dangers which are specific ones. So in this sense, there is a kind of consciousness about the specificity of soya beans and all products out of it for the human nutrition. But we don't see, let's say, a very important task for us to claim this danger. This has to be done by other people.
Can I comment? What I think the biodynamic section of the Goethe, in my view, should inform people about the danger, because nowadays those people who use a vegetarian style of life, they are threatened by this product, because the producers, they try to sell to the vegetarian people this product, saying that it is rich in protein, but they don't say about the harm effect it brings, especially for the children, because it was a research done that if children eat soya too much, up to 3 years old, they never have children then in their life. and then yes, and also I think the Goethe Annum should inform people about the danger of eating potato, the nightshades, because Rudolf Steiner mentioned that and commented that it is a cunning plant for human beings, cunning animal, cunning enemy, he said. Despite that, some suggestions were given to create new sorts of potato. I don't know whether he indicated.
Yes, we have a nutrition department in our section. It's run by Dr. Jasmin Peschke. I will talk to her. She just launched a book, but it's in German. And okay, I will talk to her, but in some way, we have more the approach that what is healthy for us is more and more individual. And so we are more supporting a kind of approach that each individual being is mindful with his nutrition, and in some way, you know, even in families, it's not the same diet for all members of the family. At least in my family, it is like this. And so it's out of these basic things you say, we know all, it's an individual task actually to find that diet more or less for each one individually. Thank you.
And may I ask you the last question? Whether you use meditations given by Rudolf Steiner to the farmers. And for example, in your case, on your land, and how many people do this meditation every day?
So the answer is that in some way we meditate with the hands. We try to do our work, especially the preparation work, with an attitude, which is a meditation attitude. And as the verse said, which I brought, that it's our mission to spiritualize the earth once again through the strength of our hands. We reshape it to a spirit-filled work of art. So meditation on our farm is an individual thing. What we do together is to work, and not to work purely practical in a sense of economical working, but of a kind of spiritual working, that really we create out of the earth a spiritual shaped piece of art.
Yeah.
This would be my answer, by stirring the preparations, by bringing the preparations out, but also the work with the cows, with the plants, with the soil, to have this kind of attitude, which has in it what perhaps one can also do in a separate way by doing meditations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't know if anyone else has a question. I actually was curious if you had any more thoughts about the young people who are the activists about climate change. And I think it's very interesting what you're talking about this notion of the footprint. And yes, there are so many young people that are really questioning whether to even have children and what kind of footprint do they have in the world. And you're talking about, actually, we need you on this earth. And so I don't know if you have any more thoughts about how to meet the young people coming towards us from the future and how to work with them more to help them understand more about biodynamics, more about some of the anthroposophical insights about the earth and the climate.
Yes, I mean, what I can say based on my experience, understanding is the one thing, but touching is the other thing. So whenever it's possible that some of these young people, they go for, let's say 1 month, 2 months, 3 months to a farm, and really they dive in the situation of a farm life. This is the way to do. And this, you can't explain, you have to live it. It's kind of action research. And of course, I'm not a teacher. You can also do it perhaps in other ways, but that we in some way bring to them a picture that they think it's not a place for me on Earth, because Earth is suffering. And the less people are on Earth, the better it is. This is a so deep catastrophe. So really we have to, out of anthroposophy, where anthroposophy means, anthropos means man. And let's work all together to try. There is not a strategy. There is a kind of, to shape situations where the young people, they can touch the earth and work with the animals and make a cheese and work until they are completely tired and so on. And this goes under the surface of the consciousness, and this is change making in their lives. This is my experience.
Yeah.
And I hope that we can do it for a lot of them.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Gordon, did you have a question? You can unmute yourself.
Right. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Ueli, very much. And,
you're welcome.
You really, Mary's question was essentially where I was headed to. It just occurred to me to request that you say a little more about your view or the view of biodynamics of the response to climate change that we're getting from, let's say, the political sphere and the likes of Greta Thunberg, et cetera, and let's say the positive and negative of what they're proposing, and maybe particularly related to carbon. What's the reality there from a biodynamic perspective?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So carbon is a very complicated issue. Carbon is everywhere. And actually we have a kind of fear from carbon because it's part of CO2, and this is completely wrong. Carbon is the carrier of life. That life out of the cosmos came and shape into the earthly reality. It's always linked to carbon. And what we have when we go deeper in by a scientific approach, I mean a Goetheanistic scientific approach, we see that we have, I think, 4 different cycles of carbon, and they have different, let's say, durations, yeah? You have a very small one when a plant grows and in the spring and in the summer, and then dies again in the winter time, yeah, and becomes a kind of humus layer, yeah. This is a very short one. And then you have another one when you take in the wood, where perhaps a tree becomes 100 years old, and then you have another one with other parts of the carbon. And what becomes a problem when you break through these cycles of carbon and you bring a carbon cycle which has a longer duration, you break it up and you bring it in a one who is faster running, yeah. And this happened with oil and gas which has been for millions of years produced and then stored, and we took it out, and in a few years we bring this carbon, which is part of the carbon cycles, let's say, of the Earth in the atmosphere. Yeah. So carbon is not our enemy. Carbon is our deepest friend, and we have to discover how he is, and then not, let's say, to try to put it away, but to bring it in the right cycle. To bring it in the, carbon has to be in life. And we have to shape the life cycles in a way that the carbon really can be in life. And when we have the picture that carbon is a kind of poison and we have to put it away somewhere, this is horrible. This is not right towards Mother Earth, because, and it's not the way to think. Yeah. Thank you for the question. And all these calculations with the two CO2 equivalents and so on. I mean, it's our society we are in. And as anthroposophists, we are not out of the society. We are not monks somewhere in a monastery. So I don't know if one is political people, actually, one has to deal with it and so on. And we with our calculations. So we do the best, but in a deeper level, carbon is a carrier of life and should be in life. And it's a question of the cycles, the life cycles of carbon. Sorry, it's not very precise, but it's a big issue.
Great, thank you. Mary, Tom, did you want to raise your question? If so, you can unmute.
Okay, yeah, I'll put my video on briefly too. The question I had, I really appreciated your perspective when you spoke of the horn silica, and that in spraying the horn silica that perhaps gives some refreshment, as I understood it, of the light to the atmosphere, at least. And I was wondering, if you're aware of anybody specifically that is looking at developing preparations beyond the indications that Rudolf Steiner has given us for the soil. Is there anybody working with to develop preparations that could be enlivening for the atmosphere, and especially in view of this perspective of carbon that you just gave in your last answer? Thank you.
I think what is needed is that we look from another angle to the preparations we have from Rudolf Steiner. So it's for me not so much a question to develop new ones. There are some people who have developed new preparations, but not specifically now for the climate issue, but in former times. There are also some traditional, let's say, not anthroposophical preparations, but Indian. Agni Horta, perhaps you heard of it. It's a kind of burning ceremony with specific substances too, and it's for the atmosphere. So there are things going on, but my research would be more, until now I applied the horn silica preparations from the atmosphere to the plant. And my question is more, how is the action of this preparation from the plant to the atmosphere in order to help the atmosphere, the climate? Yeah. not to look where it comes down,
Okay,
but to look
thank
where
you.
it goes up. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, does anyone else have a question that they would like to ask? If so, you can unmute yourself, and I don't see any other questions. Anyone have anything that they would like to ask? Okay, I have one other question that I was curious about in relation to the question Mary asked and some of what you're talking about this relationship between the atmosphere and the plant and the atmosphere. And what about things like the essences, you know, about flower essences, plant essences? Are you familiar with those preparations? There's a variety of different companies around this country for sure, and I'm sure around the world, where people are making different kinds of essences that they're using for all kinds of therapeutic and medicinal purposes, and very much a healing impulse. And in some ways, it does seem like it affects the atmosphere. I mean, the intentions are to affect the atmosphere and also to affect the human being in a healing and transformative way. And so I don't know, are there other biodynamic preparations, or are there ways of working with the biodynamic preparations besides through the soil and the food to work on the human being?
No, for the human beings, we have the remedies, or let's say the pharmaceutical products from Steiner.
Yeah.
And they are for the microcosmos human being, and the preparations are for the macrocosmos. And in this way, you can, in this way, I would say, a cardiodoron, for example, as to take one example, is really for us when we need it. And a steering nettle preparation, which is the correspondent to cardiodoron, for example, the steering nettle is the heart, the preparation for the heart function in my farm organism, that is done with steering nettle. And to make the cardiodoron, which is the remedy, or let's say the pharmaceutical product for my heart as a human being, it's very more complicated. So I think there is a kind of very meaningful correspondence between microcosmos man and macrocosmos, but when it goes to this kind of remedies. And of course, when you have these plants as chamomile or steering nettle and so on, they are so wonderful plants, so they also can be applied for us, for our health, as they are applied in the preparations, But the preparations are not just chamomile, it's a more or less simple or complicated way to really elaborate the preparation, It's not complicated, but it's a kind of recipe. It's not just, for example, the dandelion flowers, which we use. It goes through a process. But we have this kind of, let's say, how to say, teas out of medical plants, which are made and which are applied, for example, in the vineyards. When you are a wine grower, a very sensible plant, and you can do a lot with this kind of teas out of medical plants. This helps a lot and is a wonderful thing which has been discovered, I would say, mostly in the last 15, 20 years. So it's rather young.
Okay, thank you. Sally, you have your hand up, and then after that, John Stephen, why don't we get to you? So Sally, go ahead first and unmute yourself, please.
How to do that thing.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I had a quick question. You said there was 4 different cycles of carbon, and I think you named one is the seasons and 2 is another, just the trees and plants dying and going back into the earth. I'm curious what the other 2 are, or where I could find that out. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you is, I have this picture now of a lot of carbon in the air, in the atmosphere, and this carbon is this life. And it's been taken out of the earth prematurely and put into the air. And I'm just curious, how do we get back to that that proper cycle, and what is that related to those 4 different carbon cycles?
Okay. It's not so easy. So we will in perhaps 2 weeks' time, we will came out with the with a kind of brochure we make as from our conference, and we have had a contribution from scientists to this carbon cycle issue. And it will be in English. And so when you go perhaps in 2 weeks' time or so on to the homepage of the section of agriculture on the English, you will find it. I just can say that what I didn't know before either is that the most of the carbon is stored in the rocks, in the chalk. And the second one is with the seas. There is a huge seas, and then only comes the one which is linked to the earthly life. Yeah, yeah, very, very special. And perhaps I have been a little bit misunderstood. Actually, we have too much CO2 in the atmosphere. This is clear. And when you have, and even the carbon is the carrier of life. I mean, he has to be on the right place. And actually, there is too much in the atmosphere. And this we have to deal with. This is not health. It is, of course, we have try to clean the atmosphere up from the too much of the CO2. But not in a technical way. We have to create life cycles which this CO2 or this carbon can brought in and be in life. This has been what I tried to say. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so thank you. And John Stephen, would you like to go next? And then after that, Eva. So John, just
yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mary. So how would you advise best creating an understanding of the threefold social order to the agricultural world, specifically organic and regenerative agricultural world, through biodynamics? Or another way to state that question is how to utilize the success and the effectiveness of biodynamic agriculture that's very real. It's real in the taste, it's real in what happens in the field and in the soil. How could you use that very success as a basis to help promote the effectiveness of threefold social order as a way to bring trust and a positive curiosity and inquiry into the social order, accepting threefolding in today's world?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, why is biodynamic in a way successful? It's because we do it. We don't speak about, we don't too much think about, we have no theories about, we have practice. And I mean, it's you are poor and you have too much work, but you do it because, yeah, it's your life. And all then we can say that biodynamics, yeah, it's true. Actually, the movement is quickly growing, and we have, I would say, each day many people who join newly the biodynamic movement around the world. It's growing quickly in India. It's growing quickly in South America. It's growing quickly in the Philippines, and so on. And why this? And when we look to the three fold social impulse, it's harder. It's harder. It don't go so. It's not so much a success, and I can only say that around some biodynamic initiatives, there has been a kind of first shape of what we could call a threefold social order. And perhaps also around schools or around medical institutions. So in my observation, also here where I am in Louviers, I mean, we have not theoretically shaped what we do in out of the threefolding, but as much as we could, we shaped what we did in our social structuring, inspired by what we have from Rudolf Steiner. And this is perhaps what happens on a biodynamic farm. You know, you have the inspiration from the agricultural course, but that you are completely on your own, because each soil is different and each climate is different and each region is different. And so it's to jump into the risk and to lose the direct indications from Steiner, and you find them again by doing. Yeah, it's this way to lose the indication and to penetrate and to dive fully in life, and then you gain it again because you work, as the other man said, perhaps by meditation or by study and so on. It's not a super answer, but I tried to rely on my experience. And
thank you so much.
Also very near the social impulses of Steiner. It's a kind of suffering that they are not wider spread and not wider recognized. But let's hope. But I think it goes through action much more than through explanations, and through the hands than through the heads.
Thank you. Because we do it.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, Eva, would you like to ask a question? Please unmute yourself.
Hello, good evening. Thank you very much for your inspiring talk. You just mentioned that the nettle preparation relates to the heart.
Yeah.
I wondered about the other preparations, if you could say a bit about that, or if you can tell me where I can read about it.
It's not from Steiner, huh? This is from other authors, and there is not a clear source, and one can also question this. I said it from the nettle preparation because when Steiner explains or brings the nettle in the agricultural course, he says that this plant should grow around our heart because we should love it, because she is so genius, this plant. And then he says, but it's not possible because the nettle is picking you, huh? So you see. And I said it also because all the other preparations, we dig them in for half a year. It's not the case for the valerian, but the nettle is without a sheet of an animal around, but for the whole year. Yeah. So I said it's in this way, perhaps the hard preparation in the all over preparations, but it's more, it's not a precise indication. It's a kind of trying to, to bring it in this way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good.
You know, you can also rely the different preparations to the planets, but this is not from Steiner 2. So all this has been done, of course, because anthroposophists do this kind of things. But the best is go to a place where the preparations are made and help to do them. This is the best.
Oh, I've done them many, many times.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Look here, I have a horn. It's a silica horn. Just that we are not only with pictures. So this has been dig in from springtime to the autumn in the earth in the summertime, and where the earth is not in life, yeah? It's the winter earth who is in life, where I have dig in the horn manure. And what means this life in the terms of Steiner? Because it's not the biological life, yeah? It's the consciousness life, which has gone in summertime because it has breathed out and is in the atmosphere with the plants and so on. And then it comes back and is breathed in wintertime. So this is also one of these, let's say, difficulties or things we have to discover, that life, as we try to understand it in a biological sense, Steiner has another perspective with this term life. But I just want to try to show the horn in reality.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Now, I think we have time maybe for one more question. Rose, you were asking a question in the chat. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask that question?
Sure. Based on Sally's question about the cycles of carbon, it just struck me as a possibility, since you mentioned about minerals sequestering most of the carbon and the seas being the next one. Does it make sense this horn silica preparation would possibly be a way to sequester carbon from the air?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I don't know. I would say in some way, no, because it's not the task of this preparation. And on the other hand, I would say yes, because with the horn silica preparation, the interaction between the plant and the air and the light and the warmth is more active, is more intense. And as we all know, the plant is taking in CO2 in order to build up her body. So in this sense, I would say there could be a kind of purifying effect to bring CO2 out of the atmosphere into the life of the plants by applying the 501.
Thank you.
Okay, so much to consider and so much work to do, obviously. But thank you, Ueli, so much for talking to us today. I really appreciate it. And I really thank everyone for attending. And we do have a number of other presentations coming up. I know tomorrow Andrew Wolpert is talking, and then there is Tatiana Pavlova from Russia coming up on May 29th, and Matthias Gurk, is that how you say his name, from the Goetheanum, the medical section, who is going to be speaking. I'm not exactly sure when he is.
Matthias Gierke. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Gierke, yeah, sorry, June 19th. And so lots of events coming up, and I encourage you to share this information with anyone else, to forward these emails so that people can join on and hear from these wonderful people out of the Goetheanum and elsewhere around the world that are joining us in Chicago as we all proceed on Zoom together. And so I think that without further ado, I think we're going to end this meeting. And if you have not already contributed, you can go on and donate by going back to the email that you found the Zoom link on. And so, yeah, thank you everyone very much for attending. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend and enjoy the spring.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. You are welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think in your country it is now 10 o'clock, correct?
Yeah, yeah. It's 10 o'clock in the evening, yeah.
10 o'clock. Do you know Marcus Becci?
Marcus Becci?
Yeah.
I know him a little bit, yeah.
Oh, he's a good friend of mine.
Oh.
Especially was his mother, Erna Becci.
Yeah, yeah. She was from Zurich, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you. All the best.
You too. And thank you for bringing me in with the email. It was a little bit hectic today.
Oh, no worries. I'm glad you were able to make it. I'm sorry for the confusion.
Yes. Yeah, very good. Thanks.
Nice to see you here.
Yeah, I'll hopefully see you tomorrow.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah.